we have 4 people, is that right? Is that including you?
Yep.
All right. Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you can all see and hear me. I can see that there are a number of you joining us online. So this is an online presentation of the intensive master's program at Birkbeck Law School. My name is Stewart Motha. I am Dean of the Law School. I'm also the Director of the intensive programs, of which there are 3. The Masters in Human Rights, in International Economic Law, and also in Constitutional Law Theory and Politics. So we run 3 master's programs intensively. And what I would like to do this evening is give you a brief overview of how the program works, and then, of course, take your questions about the program. So if you do have questions while I'm speaking, you can type them in through the chat bubble, and I will be able to see your questions and address them live, as it were. I've also got a colleague of mine here who is monitoring the questions, and he will also be responding to you. So welcome again, and I'll talk you through how the intensive master's program works at Birkbeck. We've been running the masters on an intensive basis for over 6 years now, and our objective for starting to teach these master's programs intensively is that we found that while our degrees that are taught on a termly basis, where students come every week over a full term, is popular, there are also many people who either work or have family obligations such that they can't come to classes each week for 2 long terms. So we designed a program that would be accessible to students, including to many international students who fly from various parts of the world to come to London and study with us intensively. And then they are really only required to be in London for the 2 weeks of face-to-face teaching, which happens in March and in June. So let me now take you through to a slide that indicates how the program is structured in terms of time. We expect you to enroll by January. So if you're planning on doing this next year, we need you to apply now. So apply as soon as possible. We have rolling admissions, and we expect you to have enrolled by January. In January, we will send you electronically the reading materials and course guides for the teaching, for the face-to-face teaching that takes place in March. You can see the sort of blocks of time on this slide. Between January and March, you're expected to do the reading and engage with the module guides, all of which are online. And then you come to teaching that begins around the middle of March. And you would usually take, if you're a full-time student, 2 of your core modules. And I'll explain the difference between cores and options shortly. You take 2 of your core modules in March during the face-to-face teaching. And this teaching happens 4 hours per day for 5 days, and each course begins on a Wednesday. So you have 4 hours of teaching on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You then have the weekend off, and you return on Monday, Tuesday to have the rest of the teaching in the module. So you do that for one module in the first week of teaching, and then another module. So those are, as I said, 2 of your core modules. And then you go away you complete your assessment, which is due by early June. So you've got quite a bit of time to get your essays finished, and you return in June to do the second lot of face-to-face teaching, which, if you're studying full-time, will involve you taking up to 4 modules. So we start slowly, if you like. You have got the option of taking an additional module in March if you would like to spread the load more evenly. That's up to you. But our sense is that actually students take a bit of time to get used to this mode of teaching. So it's sometimes better to have it loaded up for more modules in June. We also have more optional modules offered in June. So I'll take you through the list shortly. And then once you finish the second grouping of face-to-face teaching in June, you've got a further period of time, July and August, to finish your assessments, which are submitted in September. And we confirm your degree by the end of the calendar year. So in fact, you have your confirmation of your degree by December, but the formal graduation takes place the following April at the graduation ceremony. Just to indicate, I was referring to core modules. These are the core modules for each of the 3 programs that we offer intensively in human rights, international economic law, and constitutional politics law and theory. So just to go, so these are the 2 modules in each program that you would need to do, just to go back to the previous slide, that you would take in March. Moving forward again. And these are the list of optional modules that are available for you to take, most of them offered in June. As I said, you can, depending on what program you're in, take a core module of another program as one of your options. So let me go back again. So if you are studying human rights, for example, you have to take those 2 modules, issues in international law and human rights, and history and philosophy of human rights. You've got to take those 2 modules in March, but you could also take one of the other cores as an option. So you could take law, post-colonialism, and political economy as an option if you were interested in spreading out your load. So you do 3 modules in March and a further 3 modules in June. There is also scope in each of these master's programs for you to do a research project. It used to be called a dissertation, so you've got to get a sense of what that's about. That's a self-directed research project where you choose the topic, obviously with our guidance, and we assign a supervisor to you, and working with the supervisor, you complete a research project. So that is also an option that you can take. So that's the range of modules that are offered as optional modules. Just to give slightly more specific information about the actual teaching terms, sorry, the teaching dates. These are indicative, we say, but fairly settled actually at this point. Of course, they change from year to year, but next calendar year we intend to start teaching on the 11th of March first for your first module, and then the 18th of March for the second module, and then in the summer term you've got 3 weeks of modules, but you may not need to be here for 3 weeks depending on which modules you're taking. So for example, you might take a module that's actually not starting on the 17th of June, but starts on the 24th of June. So you can actually concentrate your options into 2 weeks. As I was saying earlier, you have 4 hours of teaching per day in each module, and these, if they're taught in the morning, start at 9 and you're done by 1 p.m. if they're taught in the afternoon, it really depends on the timetable, and that information can be sent to you, quite detailed information, so we're not going to put it all up on a slide here. But you might also have an option in the afternoon. But it'll be one or the other unless you choose to do an option alongside your course in March. Now, we have a few people signed up here. Do send through your questions if you have any from me. So I can send, please type any questions. I've just sent a message out to you asking you to send any questions. I'm coming through as Matthew Wicks, but I'm actually Stewart Motha. It's Matthew who's administering the system here. I take it sound questions are not possible. They can only come by way of text. Does anyone have any questions about any of what I've been saying? There was a question there from... Just to add further detail about the law school, for those of you who are thinking about coming here, we like to teach law in an interdisciplinary way. So we always mix the concrete, practical content of legal studies with more historical, sociological, and theoretical points of view. So you will find with all of the modules that there's a combination of concrete, practice-based material, but also more theoretical content. Having said that, we do not expect that you will have had a law degree already. The program is open to people who come with other degrees, and we take that into account when we determine the content of what we teach. So we do try to give you a framework in the subdisciplines, so whether that's in economic law or in human rights, you will get an overview of the institutional structures in relation to that particular area, and then we will sort of build from that. We also have, and at this point maybe Matt, we can take this slide off, and I can go back to just the how do I do that? Don't touch that. Okay, we're just working on something here. We do also have a number of people teaching in the masters who've had considerable experience in a variety of different contexts. So, for example, Sari Kuvo, who teaches the case on conflict and conflict intervention in human rights, has implemented human rights in the context of Afghanistan, worked as a consultant to the European Union and to NATO, We have people who've worked in the European Bank, for example, who are teaching finance, people who work with the Asia Development Bank, or been involved in implementing health policies in Malawi, who teaches issues of health and development. So there are people who we're able to bring in to teach who've had quite a lot of practical experience out in the field, as it were, and they've also thought about it. They've worked on their experience. They worked on their experience in academic context to develop an analysis of it. Okay, so one of you is asking to see the slide again on optional modules. Let me see what I can do to relaunch that. Hang on a second. How do I share that? Let's double click that. Okay, here we go. Right, so there is the slide on the optional modules. So you can see there, crisis, conflict, and human rights. That is the module taught by Sari Kubo, critical migration law taught by my colleagues Nadine El-Anani and Sarah Keane, and on it goes. So we have quite a mix of optional modules that some of which are core modules in the various master's programs. So some of you will be doing these in any case as cores, and the point would be to pick other modules as options. And as I said, and as the little blurb on top of the slide says, you're also able to do a research project. It used to be that the research project was actually compulsory. It's no longer compulsory, but so we've actually got quite a lot of experience of people combining doing a research project with doing the options. Any other questions from the people we have gathered here online? Yes, I just had a question asking whether the research project is optional. It is indeed optional from this coming year. Until this year, it had been compulsory, and we found that sometimes led to students doing the master's program part-time because they found that it was a lot to do in the course of the summer. It's absolutely up to you whether you do it full-time or part-time. So the difference is that if it's full-time, you do the whole program over 1 year. If it's part-time, you do it over 2 years. And we were finding that people wanted to study it full-time, but were then finding that doing the research project on top of the other modules made it more difficult, because of course, unlike doing a structured taught module, if you're doing a research project, you have to do quite a lot of the work of finding material and so forth on your own. That obviously is an advantage in that you get to define the parameters of what you research, but on the other hand, you don't have the same structure that a module gives you. So we therefore concluded that we would not make the research project compulsory, but certainly we would encourage you to do a research project, and we would support you very strongly in achieving that objective. I've had a question here about whether there are any exams. Thanks for the question. Well, we should certainly clarify what the assessment is like. There are no exams in any of the modules. All of the modules are assessed by a 4,000-word essay in each module. And the research project is 8,000 words. So that also just gives you a bit of a sense of the scope of that. So yes, so the modules in March would then require you to submit an essay for each module of 4,000 words in the first week of June. Similarly, the modules that you take in June would require you to submit a 4,000-word essay for each module at the beginning of September. We have a slightly delayed deadline for the research project, so not everything is coming in at once. So I think the research project is due in at the end of around the third week of September. All right, well, we hope that has helped you to get a better sense of the intensive master's programs. As I said, my name is Stewart Motha. I'm the Dean of the Law School. You can find my details online, and you can certainly write directly to me at the email address s.motha, M-O-T-H-A, @bbk.ac.uk. I'll just send it through now as a text to you. So I'm just sending through my email address. You can write to me directly if you have any questions. I've just been asked a question. If you chose not to do the master's intensively, are there more optional modules available? The short answer is yes. If you were to take it in what I call if you were to study the master's conventionally, there would be more optional modules available for you, but that's really only formally speaking, because for example, there might be a longer list of optional modules, but you would still need to be able to do them in the particular term that you've got free to take options. So again, in the conventional module, conventional masters, you would have a core that you would usually take in the autumn term, and then another core in the spring term, and then you would take the options available to you in autumn and spring. You are also able to take intensive modules as an option if you're studying conventionally. What I will say is that there are options offered in the intensive mode that are not available, that are not taught conventionally. So there are some of the options on the list here are not taught conventionally. So they can only be taken in intensive format. So for example, the first two, crisis, conflict, and human rights, critical migration law, human rights, poverty and development, hate crime, the history and philosophy, Southern perspectives on constitutional and political transformation. And I think, yes, the two modules on finance, on financial institutions, and also on international finance, both of those are also only taught intensively. So the majority of the, well, significant number, nearly half or more than half of the modules you see in the optional list are only taught intensively. Okay, so I've just been reminded to tell you that we'll be having a further virtual taster session for each of our postgraduate programs later this week, including the ones offered intensively. And I think the links to that have been sent to you, is that right? As a text message here. So unless there are any further questions, I thank you very much for your interest in the intensive master's programs, and I look forward to meeting some of you in person. I should say I teach in the History and Philosophy of Human Rights core in the Human Rights Masters, and of course people in other programs take that as an option as well. So I do teach in the intensive masters myself. As I said, we've been running this for 6 years, and I've been teaching on it over that period of time and have enjoyed it very much, and look forward to meeting some of you very soon, hopefully. Thank you very much.